Now, before the show, Banff and Diesel were talking to me and we were chatting about, material and stuff. And I said to them, I was like, I think I want to do my CNC bit. And they were like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I'm probably not going to do it. I was like, I'll do it if I'm doing 15 and it's going, because basically they were like, look, if it's going averagely or badly, just do a loose 10. If it's going really well, do 15, whatever, And I was like, cool. So I was like, look, I'm not going to do my CNC bit unless it's going really, really well and I'm, whatever. And they were kind of like, it's on you, it's on your head if you want. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, cool.
What is wrong with you?
Well, that's what George said to me. So basically,
but what is wrong with you? This is why you need people like me and George in your life. Because if you called me and told me that, I would have come and slapped your fucking cheeks. Because that's stupid, right? I don't care if you were Dave Chappelle murdering people were falling out their chair, fucking begging for your autograph. Yeah. That was never going to work.
Yeah, but I'm a comic.
I know, but
I'm a comic, and I wanted.
Come on, man. That's suicide at that point.
Well, but I had them on side, right? But here, let me tell you what happened. By the way, for people listening, right? CNC is my most shocking joke. It's actually I was talking about.
It's not that bad.
But this is the thing. I was talking about this with B the other day when I was recounting the events of this gig to her.
Yeah.
I was talking to her about it, and she made a great point where she was like, the joke is actually not offensive.
No.
It's not offensive at all.
No.
It's shocking. It's very shocking and like, whoa, but it's not actually an offensive joke.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought about it like that until she said it to me.
B is of the same mindset of us though. And I will say...
Well, she is. She loves dark humor, but she's also a hardcore, she's a feminist.
No, I agree. Holly is the same. But what I will say is there are people that would find that offensive. And
100%.
In this actuality, it's not. It's like a lot of my stuff. It's not offensive.
Yeah.
I'm not actually saying anything offensive.
But because the subject matter, people
it's a
will
buzzword.
Take it.
People hit a buzzword. They go, "Oh, that's what they find offensive." They go, "You're joking about a serious topic."
Yeah, exactly.
That's the offensive.
Exactly.
But also, don't do it in that room, regardless of if it's offensive or not. Right.
Well,
anything sexual in a room like that, I wouldn't touch.
Okay, so. Anyway, some of us have made a stronger stuff, right? So I'm in my set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, 13, 14 minutes in, and it's going really well. And so I was like, I finished my bit, and then it got a laugh. And I kind of paused for a second, and I was in flow state, and I was like, all right, fuck it.
Did you actually say, all right, fuck it?
And I went, so guys, I've got this bit that I do whenever I perform at clubs or around the UK or whatever. I've got this bit. It's kind of like my big closer. And by the way, for context, earlier in the night, Lim said to the crowd, he was like, how many of you have actually been to a comedy club before? One American guy put his hand up. So none of them have been to comedy before. And also, they're not comedy fans. You're not doing it to a room. The only thing they have in common is that they're Somali.
Yeah.
It's not, they're not there to appreciate the craft of comedy. They're there, to them, comedy is like, on TikTok when someone does a meme
Which
about
is how they would know these
when you forget your
banks,
bus pass, oh my God, I was so embarrassed, I nearly missed my lecture. That's what they think comedy is.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that to a room of non-comedy fans who have never been to a comedy club before. So I had to give context. So I said, look, when I go to comedy clubs, around London and the UK, whatever it is, this is my big kind of finale. This is my big closer that I do.
You didn't. You actually laid out like this.
Yeah.
This is the big one.
I had a conversation with them.
Okay.
Because I wanted to get consent. So I said, look.
You wanted to get consent about consent, non-consent.
Yeah. I wanted to get consent about consensual non-consent.
That's funny.
So I said to them, I was like, this is my big closer. I was like, but I'm so aware of the fact that none of you have been to comedy before. You're not really into comedy or aware of how comedy works.
You're religious,
and also I know it's obviously I'm just a religious room, and I'm not here to upset anyone or anything. But I am a darker comedian. I have a lot of very dark humor. This is how it works in comedy clubs. I'm setting it up like this, right? I'm saying all this stuff, and I was like, so this is normally my big closer. Banff and Diesel told me not to do this joke, and that got a big laugh. And I said, I'm serious. Literally before the gig, I said to him, and I said to Bam, I was like, I might do it. And he goes, Wallahi, don't do it. And because I said Wallahi, that made them laugh.
Yeah, that's funny.
And that laughed. That got a good laugh. And I said, so look, I will leave it up to you because I don't want to hurt or offend anyone. But this is what I do. This is my thing. So
that's a leading statement.
No, it's actually not.
I feel like when you set that up to a room, they're gonna go, yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Well, but still, the point is that I've asked for consent from the room. I've said, this is what it is. I've said this is a very dark, very shocking, very offensive joke.
Yeah.
But I'll leave it up to you if you want me to do it. The whole room unanimously was like, yeah, do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I kind of looked off to the wings where Banff and Diesel were, and I could see they had their heads in their hands. And I was like, yeah, I mean, they said.
Yeah. So come on, get to the fucking thing. Let's hear it. What happened?
So I'm doing the bit. The first half of the bit, like when I explained the premise, people are already gasping. They're like, oh.
Yeah.
One guy in the front.
Just remind me, what's the opening line to that bit?
The opening line actually isn't offensive, but it's basically I'm like, I met this girl on a dating app, and then we were having phone sex.
Yeah, but already that's probably too much for 90% of the people in that room, right? Yeah.
But they weren't like, oh my God, they were like, oh, you know? So like, yeah, I know, like, they were like Japanese. Yeah, they all became Japanese. That's like French.
Oh, God,
anyway,
this
so
is painful. Go on.
I mentioned the subject, right? Mm-hmm. One guy who's right in the front row, he immediately just gets up and just walks 4 rows back and takes a different seat.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
That's really not good.
But all the crowd, again, they're kind of like, there's a lot of smiling faces. They're kind of like, oh my God, kiki. But they're not like giving me evils, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm setting it up and I say the buzzword and the premise, you know, and then they go, oh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, relax. Because the whole room, in between every line I'm saying, they're like, oh, there's like a massive hubbub. So I have to be like, guys, relax, let's finish. You know? So I'm setting up. And it's getting progressively like, but there are laughs.
Yeah.
And that's important because it wasn't that I wasn't looking out to a crowd of like 80 people who were all scowling at me being Otherwise I would have parachuted it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, they're kind of like, but they are laughing.
Yeah.
Like they're with me throughout the joke. So at one point I'm halfway through.
But there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of shock.
A lot of
horror in
a lot of shock, but also horror with like a smiling face, like, oh my God, can you, what?
Yeah.
Like I'm frying their brains.
Yeah.
But they're not like, oh my God, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm going halfway through and they are with me on it. And then there's one bit halfway through that gets like a decent laugh from them. And then Diesel goes, hey, and he goes, hey, quit while you're ahead. And then that got a laugh.
Oh.
And I was like, nah, fuck that. I'm halfway through. Yeah. Like, I can't stop now. I'm like, I can't.
I should have stopped.
But I didn't. And also, I have to say,
this is such a comic state of mind.
100%. And that's the thing, man. I was in the zone where I'm like, look, it's been going well so far.
Yeah.
The set as a whole. B, the joke as a whole has been going better than I thought.
Yeah.
It's been going all right. They have been laughing.
Yeah.
And C, I'm a fucking comic. I ask consent. And I'm not going to just bail on the joke halfway through.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fucking see it through because I'm a comic and that's what I do. I put my fucking balls on the stage. I'm like, fuck it. It's going to go how it's going to go.
Do you know what it is, well, just for context, in every comic, there's a small, because I've not done a room like that, but I've done rooms where I know that it's not the right room.
Right.
And you go, yeah, but they kind of like the other stuff. I can make them want to.
Yes.
I can make them enjoy this.
I can
there's
change
that voice.
them.
Yeah, there's that voice in there where you go, I don't think anyone else in the world could make this work, but I think I can.
Yeah.
There's that little voice in there where you're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So that's
and normally you can't.
Yeah, no,
and I don't mean you. I mean we can't.
No, you never
can't.
can.
One cannot in general.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's going halfway. So then he's like, fuck it, quit all your head. I'm like, no, fuck it, I'm gonna commit. So I keep going. And then I say like the first big punchline, which is where I'm not gonna say the line because I don't want to ruin the joke, but like I'm miming like masturbating.
Oh,
right?
I know.
And I'm screaming that sentence.
You're screaming a word.
I'm screaming a word, but I'm screaming a sentence.
Yeah.
It's a whole, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I'm like, fuck it. And bear in mind, the first row of seats is probably like where the camera is, right? So I'm like,
again, no mic,
no
lighting,
and it's just a sea of hijabi women.
You're the first person to ever fake masturbate in that room.
Yes.
Okay.
They're gonna have a plaque of me on the wall. They're gonna give me one of these. I should have brought this out as a prop.
Oh my God.
Bring out the fist toy, you know? So anyway, so I'm doing this. I'm like, they lose it. They're like, they're like fucking, but again, they're not like boo or like, wow, no, fucking, they're not angry. They're just like,
they're shocked.
I've melted their
they're shocked.
brains.
Yeah.
So they're like, what? And so that's happening. And then I say the final punchline, but because there's so much like hubbub from that line, it kind of just gets lost in translation.
So it's probably a good thing, right?
It's probably a good thing. So it doesn't really land. Yeah. And so anyway, there's all this like crazy pandemonium and they're just like, it's like the fucking last days of Rome.
Yeah.
Everyone's right. And I'm just standing there with like a big grin on my face, like that.
No mic as well.
I know.
Nuts.
And then eventually all the noise dies down and I'm like, so yeah, that was the CNC bit. Anyway, I've been Ollie, cheers, bye. And I just...
Applause?
Yeah, applause.
Okay, so
got applause.
Okay.
Got applause.